Welcome to the Pump Take Sports Show. Oh boy, do we have something to talk about today. James Harden has been traded from the Houston Rockets. The writing was on the wall. We saw the reports today. We put a story on our Instagram talking about it. Pretty crazy stuff, boys. And there's been other moves as well. Oladipo's been moved. Jarrett Allen's been moved. Somehow the Cavaliers got involved in all this mess. So Lucas, you have the details of all this stuff?
Yeah, so this is really complex. It was like a 4-team trade. But to start off, so the Houston Rockets from this trade acquired the biggest package. They got Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Rodions Kurucs, the 2022, 2024, and 2026 Brooklyn first-round picks, the 2022 Milwaukee Bucks first-round pick, four Brooklyn first-round pick swaps for the 2021, 2023, 2025, and 2027 drafts. So essentially, the Houston Rockets own the Brooklyn Nets draft from now until 2027. The Nets acquire James Harden. That's it. The Pacers acquire Caris LeVert and a second-round pick. And the Cleveland Cavaliers acquire Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince. And that is the gist of the deal.
Wow. Yeah, when you hear it out loud like that, it's so crazy. All the first-round picks, and they're all unprotected too. That's the craziest thing about it.
Unbelievable.
One thing that kind of, when you were reading it out, reminded me of was, remember when the Nets traded for like Paul Pierce and like all those guys, and the Celtics owned their draft for years?
Yeah, they're doing it again.
Kind of makes you think about that, eh? Trading for a guy like that and putting yourself in that situation again. Now, okay, there's a lot of things to talk about here. I just want to say first and foremost, how much could you have gotten for James Harden? Like, wow, they got so much for him. Like, all those picks are worth so much in the NBA. And once again, let's just preface this by saying we are recording this literally minutes after the trade has gone through. So none of us have really had time to process a lot of like the big, discussion points that are going to be happening. It's more of a reaction video. But wow, how many picks did they get? Like what, 6 first-round picks?
They got 4 first-round picks and 4 pick swaps.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy.
One thing I think for the Rockets is to get Oladipo now, and now you have John Wall, and you have DeMarcus Cousins. That is still pretty, well, I mean, one, they're kind of like the old age hurt home. They're of like hurt players who are a little bit...
the Houston rests.
Yeah, literally. But that being said, with all the picks they've got, they can remain competitive with these guys. And who knows, Oladipo might have a little bit of a career turnaround and then be a real great. Another thing I just thought of actually as I was saying this is that the veteran leadership on that team will be great for all the picks that they've got coming in.
What I like about what the Rockets did too is like they managed to like also like incorporate other teams into this, so they got more than just what they were gonna acquire for James Harden, because they were able to get Oladipo and Exum and Kurucs and like actual players that they can play in their lineup now. Just like what Jake was saying, how they didn't like really like necessarily mortgage their year this year. They kind of added some guys that are still good players that can like add into their lineup, but then they also got the huge haul of picks from Brooklyn, and all they had to give up really was James Harden.
I totally agree. We'll kind of go through, I think, like all the teams and like how we think they came out, but just to stick on the Rockets, for my opinion, like I think they really came out of this as winners, like considering everything going on with the situation. And the weird thing is that like you have to assume something like this was kind of brewing for a long time, like in terms of the specific details, but like it seems like this kind of just happened overnight, because obviously you had last night with the Harden drama, like him in the press conference basically saying their relationship with Houston was irreparable. And then you just have this come out where they totally like get basically 8 first-round picks and, maintain a competitive squad that will kind of be like a nice transition when those picks actually turn into players down the line. So I think they're big winners. There's not only one winner, obviously, in a 4-team trade. So we'll talk about the rest of that. But yeah, I agree with you guys. I think the Rockets came out pretty good.
And you know what, Aiden, too, is that Harden had lost that locker room. You were seeing the stuff DeMarcus Cousins was saying today. You were seeing what John Wall was saying last night. He lost the team. Like, the team was now moving in a different direction. And so to get that value from a guy that had been causing so much drama within an organization, I mean, listen, we're talking about James Harden, right? We're talking about, some people would say a top 5 player in the NBA. Some people would say a top 10 player. But he's in that conversation, right? So you are talking about a guy like that, but at the same time, when you lose the team and you're causing so many issues, you wonder if the value is still going to be there, but clearly it is. Brooklyn sent everything they had over to get him. And so I agree with both of what you guys are saying. Rockets, they're a winner in this 4-team move. Do you want to talk about one quick thing I want to kind of talk about? Do you want to talk about the Cavs just for a second? Just real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I love the Jarrett Allen move.
Yeah, it was smart.
Really smart.
Nice little addition.
He's a good player, and he was showing this year in the last couple games. Kale, who's not on the show right now, but he has him in our fantasy basketball league. And you were seeing the numbers this guy was putting up as soon as they put DeAndre Jordan back on the bench. You were seeing, wow.
Yeah.
Like, great young player. And he's young, too. He fits in with the Cavaliers kind of like forward-thinking youth movement that they've got going on.
Yeah, he's still only 22. And, I mean, this is like, I'll say something about this a little bit later, but they have a lot of, like, center power forwards on their roster with Drummond, now Jordan, Larry Nance, and Kevin Love. So I think it's kind of like making this move for Jarrett Allen kind of tells you what they're thinking about those guys. Obviously, like you said, they're moving towards this youth movement. But I think they kind of secured their center of the future, and it says a lot about what they think about Andre Drummond for the future, I think.
Absolutely, too. And I think they lost Dante Exum in this scenario. Like,
they think about that. Like, they were able to just kind of weasel their way into this trade and ended up like getting so much more value than what they gave up. Like the Cavs seem like they're kind of like a little bit of like a little rat or snake in this trade where they just kind of were like, hey, let's do this and like get Jarrett Allen for like essentially like dirt. But what about the Brooklyn Nets though? Like, Is this the best big three we've ever seen in the NBA?
In terms of talent, I think it's like pretty close to inarguable.
Yeah, I think it's in the conversation for sure.
I mean, if you look at big threes in history, this has got to be in the conversation in terms of just talent on the floor. You're talking about Kevin Durant, who might go down as a top 5 offensive player of all time. You're talking about James Harden, who's this generation's maybe greatest scorer outside of maybe Durant. And then you have Kyrie Irving, who is a perennial, just incredible point guard. When he's playing, he's undisputedly a top 5 point guard. My problem with this comes in when you think about the chemistry situation that's going to be happening in Brooklyn. You wonder if the talent will just exceed it.
Yeah.
Or you wonder if it'll boil up. I mean, like, we haven't talked about this on the show yet, but Kyrie is causing all sorts of issues in Brooklyn. And you have to wonder, like, how is Kevin Durant going to feel? Like, Kevin Durant also isn't a guy who takes things off the shoulder, right? He really does take things to heart in terms of, you know, what people are saying about him, drama around him. He doesn't like that kind of stuff. Well, he signed up for it now with James Harden, with all of his sound bites that he's had recently, and Kyrie Irving. What do you guys think about the chemistry situation here?
Yeah, I don't know. I literally don't know what to make of it. I don't know how it's going to work on the court. One thing I did want to bring up is there's this tweet that I read by Tommy Beer on Twitter, at Tommy Beer. So he says there are only 7 active players in the NBA with a career usage rate above 29%, and 3 of them are Durant, Kyrie, and Harden. They're going to be playing on the same team. Like, how is that even going to work? Like you said, Jake, it might just be a situation where the talent is just too good for it not to figure itself out. But like, I mean, with the 2 biggest storylines off the court in the NBA right now are Kyrie and what was going on with Harden. Yeah. Now on the same team, on top of that, how they're all really ball dominant, high usage players. Like, how is this going to work both off the court and on the court? I have no idea. It's so much to process.
I think this is the biggest challenge that a rookie coach in Steve Nash could ever possibly have to deal with in his first season in the NBA. He has to handle like 3 of the biggest egos in the league, and they're all going to be on the same team. And Kyrie's like you said before, he's like doing like his classic Kyrie stuff where he just kind of like doesn't play, and who knows when he's going to be back. But I almost wonder if like this trade is going to ignite Kyrie's like passion or something, or pique his interest enough for him to want to come back and really like commit to the season, because this is going to be his best chance to get to the finals, I think.
Well, he better come back. If he doesn't come back after that, like, you really have to question if he's going to keep playing in the NBA long term. Like, you have an opportunity here to win a championship in hypothetically win a championship in a season with 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA, how do you not come back as Kyrie Irving just to be committed to your teammates? Like, it's a little bit, there's some questions there, but I was thinking, like, on the court when it was Kyrie and KD, no Harden involved, a lot of Nash's offense seemed to kind of be like your turn, my turn type stuff, where one guy would go in an ISO, then the other guy would, there might be a Kevin Durant like screen set every once in a while, but a lot of it was just almost like a teeter-totter back and forth of who's up, who's down, like back and forth, back and forth. Harden fitting it into this might just be the same thing, where this is a Harden possession. Okay, now this is a KD possession. Okay, now this is a Kyrie possession. And it might be weird, it might be awkward, but you have to think that guys this talented will just figure it out.
Yeah. The other thing I did want to bring up from the Brooklyn side of things, like obviously we've kind of stressed how weird it's going to be, these 3 guys, assuming Kyrie comes back and plays. No one even knows where he is on planet Earth right now. So that is a question. But yeah, that's a big mess. But then also it's going to be kind of weird because Brooklyn was relying a lot on their bench unit led by Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen. Like that was a big part of what made them. I mean, obviously they kind of fell off in terms of wins and losses after, KD was out because of COVID protocols and Kyrie went AWOL. But like at their best, that was a big part of why they were looking so good at the start of the season. So it's going to be weird how that adapts to, like, it might just turn into like literally Kevin Durant, Kyrie, James Harden taking turns the entire game and like basically no one doing anything else.
Yeah, because you have to think as well, like, let's remember, I think it was 2 years ago now, the Nets made the playoffs. We talked about this in the Knicks video. The Nets made the playoffs on the backs of guys like Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert. And now that entire core of guys that they kind of, Taurean Prince is another example. All these guys are now gone. So they've completely kind of cut the foundation out from under their team. And I get, you're going for James Harden, right? So obviously there's a trade-off here. But still, you have to wonder how foundationally their team will be able to move forward without a lot of guys that kind of make the gears actually turn. I think it's safe to say we've talked about them enough. Let's talk about the Pacers a little bit, because the Pacers got involved in this in quite a few ways. So they trade Oladipo to the Rockets, and they get back LeVert, I believe. Is that correct?
LeVert and a second-round pick.
Okay. I mean, LeVert is a really good player. I think he's comparable to Oladipo in terms of his skill set and what he provides to a team. He provides scoring just as Oladipo did. For the way that the Pacers are playing right now, you have to think it's not going to be too much of a change.
I'll just jump in first. The one thing I just wanted to say is I agree with your assessment of it. I'm kind of confused by it. Like, I guess, like you said, Oladipo and LeVert, they bring a lot of the same things to the table. From what we've seen from LeVert, Oladipo is more efficient. Obviously, Oladipo in his prime, it was better than Karis LeVert has ever been. But like that's not the same Oladipo we're seeing. He's been through some injuries, some other stuff. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I don't really see why. Like, it kind of seems redundant to me. It reminds me a lot of how I felt after the Russell Westbrook John Wall trade, where I was just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I could see this working out for both sides. I could see it working out for one side. It just feels like one of those moves. Like, I'm not saying there's a winner or a loser. I just was kind of weirded out when I saw this at first, because it's like, I don't know. LeVert to me seems like the better asset, I guess. But at the same time, Oladipo is the bigger name. He's been better through his career. So I don't know. What do you think about it, Lucas?
Yeah, I think they got maybe a little bit more consistency from LeVert in terms of, like, from the injury perspective of it. So maybe they're looking for a little bit of a safety net there, whereas Oladipo was kind of like off and on. You never know if he's going to play. He wasn't playing back-to-backs for them. But honestly, if I'm being totally honest, I don't think the Pacers really improved their team much in this, and I'm not really all that sure why they even wanted to involve themselves in this trade, because they didn't seem to, like you mentioned, it seemed like a little bit of a lateral move. And on top of that, they gained a second-round pick. So I don't know, like.
If I can add something in here, I think the reason why, if I had to guess, that they wanted to do this is because, I mean, obviously Oladipo is no pinnacle of health, but neither has Karis LeVert been over his season. They kind of have similar values. I think the difference is, I mean, it's been forgotten about now with how much NBA, like drama is just coming out constantly is that Oladipo was going to get moved from the Pacers a little while ago.
That's true.
This was kind of a headline that was going around like, where's Oladipo going to go? Like, when are the Pacers going to trade him? What is his value? And I believe, I could be wrong, I believe this is a contract year for Oladipo. So I think they're trying to move him maybe before it's expiring. Maybe someone could check in. Could you maybe like check if it's an expiring deal or?
Who, Oladipo?
Yeah.
Or yeah, I can take a quick look.
But yeah, I remember when all this drama stuff was going on with Oladipo and the Pacers, and I think it was just a mutual tie to just separate. And when you're getting a guy like Karis LeVert, who, as we've been saying, is so almost like even with him in terms of what he's bringing to the team, you're saving yourself the drama and you're getting yourself a good basketball player. So I see why they did it, but once again, it's lateral in a sense.
Yeah, it's better to get something back than let a guy like that walk, right? For nothing. So I guess that is it a contract year there, Sneed? Did you find out?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he's a UFA after this
so
season. So that's part of it.
And they did
that would be why then,
him, right? And you can probably get LeVert for a little bit less money in the long run than you can get Oladipo for having to pay Oladipo next offseason. You've been seeing how well Sabonis has been playing. It's no longer Oladipo's team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sabonis has the team, and then you look at the second guy, and it's probably Brogdon. Yeah. And then you look at how they have this reluctancy to move on from Miles Turner. Who's the odd guy out? It's Oladipo coming off of his injury last year. You see why they had to make the move.
Yeah, you make a pretty good point there. We like you said, all of that had kind of died down, so I have kind of forgotten about the Oladipo trade rumors. But yeah, it did kind of seem like he wanted out for a little bit there. So maybe that's part of it. I do think, like, if I had to say, who got the better side of the deal in a vacuum, I think the Pacers probably did, just getting the younger player and the second round pick for whatever that's worth. I don't know. I do see it as kind of a lateral move, but that does make sense why they wanted to move off of Oladipo. Is that all teams covered? Because there is one thing I wanted to say really quick, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. Relative to the Raptors, who is obviously all of our favorite teams, as you can see the JV jersey up in the rafters there. But obviously, it's pretty clear. You guys talked about it in the video, discussing why the Raptors have had a slow start. They need a center. And I was thinking, after this trade, obviously the Cavaliers kind of have, for lack of a better term, an embarrassment of riches at the center position. I was thinking, would it be kind of like a move that you guys would be interested just to get one of those guys? Obviously, for me, the preference would be Larry Nance and the defense that he brings. I was kind of thinking getting one of those guys for the Raptors just for this season, regardless of where we think they're going to finish with or without them. I think that would be kind of a good move.
Well, Sneed, I love the thought because, to be honest with you, I would love it. I think it's just our most glaring hole. I'll tell you this. Of the guys that they have on their roster, I'm not interested in Kevin Love. I think he's out for multiple weeks. He's too old. He's not going to be part of a long-term game. Now, would Drummond be part of the long-term game? Probably not. But I think the difference in those players is worth maybe making a move for Drummond, because clearly Cleveland is showing that they are not thinking about Drummond like a long-term option here.
Exactly, yeah.
Jarrett Allen signing. Additionally, I think Larry Nance, completely agree with you, would be the best guy for the Raptors. Not only his defense, I think he would probably cost the least. Maybe
I think so.
Just with Kevin Love being who he is for Cleveland, and then Drummond being like kind of one of their better players, just in a box score sense of what he does every night. Larry Nance doesn't even, well, he does now, but he doesn't normally start for this team. So if the Raptors could swoop in and make a move, Larry Nance is much better than Aaron Baines has shown or Alex Len has shown this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much else that I can add to that other than what you said, Jake, but I was going to just say, like, that should be like our most important move to go forward during this season, is to address that glaring hole at center. And yeah, looking at teams like that aren't necessarily competitive, like the Cavs, and that have an embarrassment of riches at the center position, should be targets for being a trade partner for the Raptors. And yeah, like, I like Drummond would be a cool addition, but I also think that he would cost a lot more than a guy like Larry Nance, who could also still be a significant upgrade at the position for the Raptors. So
something to keep in mind that just came to mind just now. we're talking about, like, I wasn't considering Drummond either for the exact reasons you guys are saying, is that he might cost the most in terms of a trade package. But then you think Drummond was traded at the deadline last year for like pennies. That like the Pistons got like Brandon Knight and like I can't even remember. I think it was John Henson and like a second for Drummond. Like just throw in like something like that. If that's what I mean, obviously he would probably cost more
if we sent them something along the lines of a second round pick and Aaron Baines and like Watanabe, would we not get Drummond?
There you go.
You know, it sounds.
I don't think they would accept that.
No, probably not. But
it was just off the top of the head, you know. But it's the idea, just kind of like of that kind of range of players. Because I completely forgot. Actually, it's weird when you play fantasy basketball because you look at Drummond averaging like a 50, and you're 40, like, amazing. But then you look kind of in the real life value sense of what he's actually worth on the market, and it's not a reflection of that. You also wonder. This is just a thought. You also wonder, is there kind of an NBA-wide disvaluing of big men that kind of happens?
Oh, for sure.
In the sense that the Raptors could kind of benefit off this. I mean, look what Jarrett Allen. I mean, I don't know the exact details of this trade once again, but Jarrett Allen went to the Cavs, and I don't think they gave up very much, unless we're missing something.
Exum and Kurucs.
Yeah, like
Exum and a way late, like 2024 first or something like that.
Right, like Jarrett Allen is worth that. In my
opinion. Yeah, and then some.
And then some. And I mean, you look at some of the ideas that like guys like Bleacher Report and ESPN have had out for Miles Turner, and I think it might be, once again, undervaluing what he might be worth. And then we talk about like here, what Drummond was worth last year. So you wonder if like the NBA just generally is a little lower on bigs than they should be. I mean, it is becoming more of a guard central league year and year and year, but yeah, it makes you wonder a little bit if the Raptors could somehow take a step into this situation.
Or maybe we could get Drummond for Stanimal 1-for-1, eh?
Yeah, well, with his 30 minutes a game, you might wonder if Nick has other plans for him.
High value player.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you for coming on with me. We covered all the teams in the trade. What a crazy day in the NBA.